Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing Ryan's sixth mock draft in our mock draft Monday series. Ryan, I can't believe it's been six already for you. We are just a couple weeks away now from the 2024 NFL draft. We will be going live on the first round night on Thursday, April 25th. And so be sure to tune in, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified when we do go live. Also, too, we have a bunch of other mock drafts coming out as well. So be sure to hit that bell so you can get notified when your team's mock draft comes out. Today, though, Ryan, we'll be doing just a first round mock draft. Ryan, I haven't seen it. I am really looking forward to seeing kind of what some of the changes are because now we're in a very interesting period where everybody's obviously seen the combine. All the free agency moves have now come in. So this will be like your first one, I think, with all the free agency moves I think that have been made. And how that might impact your draft. So I think that is phenomenal. It's going to be a lot of fun. Ryan, take it away whenever you're ready.
All right, let's get into it here. Pull this up. To me, one of the things that was really interesting was I felt like a lot of teams filled their major needs here, like through the free agency process. I know fans might not feel that way, but going into the draft, especially a draft class that has this many talented players, I think a lot of teams are going to be going with best player available, or teams have filled all but one need that they're going to try to address here in the first round. So speaking of that, the Chicago Bears traded away Justin Fields, leaving one glaring hole on their roster, and that is the quarterback position, and Caleb Williams is sitting right here. I would be willing to bet thousands of dollars if gambling was legal in Georgia that he would be the first overall pick. So I think that's a shoe-in. I've heard reports that they're already requesting that he can have access to the locker room up in Chicago. So this is where I will have some change. Historically, I have been a Jaden Daniels guy, but I think after the pro day, I think the physical tools of Drake Maye really, really stood out, especially when Jaden Daniels' pro day was on Wednesday, Drake Maye's pro day was on Thursday, and you could really kind of compare from one day to the next of like, okay, Drake Maye's arm strength and size and just ability overall is much higher, I think, than Jaden Daniels. To me, I think a lot of the questions are just what can you get out of Drake Maye? And I think Cliff Kingsbury, that's what they brought him in for. That's why you hire like the offensive guru coaches like him to go and get the most out of your offensive players. And I think Drake Maye goes here at number 2. And with that being said, it leaves Jaden Daniels right here for the Patriots at 3. I considered trading back. I mean, if Minnesota wants to trade up, it would be 11, 23, a first next year, and probably a third as well. And I just think even for that price, I think New England would be better off just going and getting Jaden Daniels. He's ready to play right now. He has the mechanics and things that he's worked on over time to go ahead and just get NFL ready. And then now I think you're just going to be teaching him the scheme. Alex Van Pelt, I think, would do a really good job of kind of tailoring what he likes to do in a West Coast system to what Jaden Daniels does. And another thing that I will say is I do worry a little bit about Jaden Daniels in that New England weather. However, I think he's going to be a little bit more weather resistant than we originally thought, simply because he has the hand size that you want in a quarterback. He has the mechanics and the arm strength that you want in that scenario. Again, it's not Drake Maye arm strength, but it's definitely above average, and it's much better than Mac Jones, who was at least for like a season and a half able to fare well in that type of weather. So I definitely think that would be a really solid pick here. And then nothing changes for me with Arizona with Marvin Harrison Jr. This right here, where the Chargers are, is where I have my first trade of the mock draft. So we're going to have the Minnesota Vikings come up here. It's going to be 11, 23, a 2025 third round pick, and then a for pick 5, and then a 2024 or 2025 round 4 pick. So, sorry, there we go. And then this is where I have JJ McCarthy coming off the board. Personally, I don't necessarily understand the JJ McCarthy hype. I understand he ran a NFL style scheme at a college level really, really well, But I think when you just look at the amount of like passing attempts that he has compared to all the other guys in this conference or in this draft class, it's really low. He was only asked to do things in critical. I don't even want to say critical, but he was very rarely asked to do things and like put the team on his back. And so I just worry about that a little bit. However, I think you get him in a Kevin O'Connell system with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson when he comes back healthy. You go get him in that system. I think that would be a really solid system. They already have a left tackle there as well. So getting JJ McCarthy here at 5. And then next up, Malik Neighbors had a phenomenal pro day, really polished on tape as well. And he definitely, to me, has the best superpower of all these wide receivers in this draft class. And just his speed alone is such a factor. And at 200 pounds, he ran a 4.35. So this guy is, to me, a top 10 lock. There's no way he's not getting out of the top 10. Speaking of top 10 locks, Joe Alt, I think, has far and away separated himself from all the other tackles in this class. And he's also going to be drafted at 20 years old. I just love his tape and his fit here for Tennessee. I think now you look at the left side of that offensive line, you got Joe Alt, Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, and then that is Will Levis's blind side pretty well covered. And I think that they do a really good job there as well. I do have another trade here with the Atlanta Falcons. I actually have the Chargers coming back up here, giving the Falcons pick 11 and 69, which on the draft trade chart that I was using averages out to be the exact, or maps out to be the exact same value. So I'm going to do that. And this is where I have Rome Odunze coming off the board. Just a really solid all-around wide receiver. He does everything really, really well. And I think with a guy like Kyler Murray, he's going to do really well in that offense, especially they got Paris Johnson last year. And I think may have them investing in offensive line a little bit later as well. So just a little foreshadowing. I'm sorry, Justin Herbert. They have invested in I don't know why I was thinking of the Cardinals. With Justin Herbert, they with Rashawn Slater there, they have the left tackle. And he is going to get ample opportunity. I think he'd be a good compliment to Quentin Johnston. Sorry, I don't know why I was thinking of the Arizona Cardinals. Here with the Chicago Bears, this is where I have Dallas Turner coming off. They run kind of that 3-4 system with the 2 outside linebackers. They got Montez Sweat, I believe, in the trade with the Commanders last year. And I really like him on tape. I think he would be a really good plug-and-play edge rusher. He's good against the run. He has the athleticism and physicality that you want. He can set the edge for an outside linebacker, which is a really desired trait. And I think he's a really solid player. Next up with the New York Jets, this is where I have Brock Bowers coming off the board. This is actually something I'm kind of dreading because I could really realistically see this happening. But then I also think you put him in that offense with Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, right? They don't really have a tight end to compete with them for snaps. And they went out, they got Morgan Moses, I believe, from the Rams, and then
Ravens.
Or from the Ravens, and then also
I think John Simpson as well.
Yeah, Tyron Smith to play left tackle.
Yeah.
So while I question those guys' ability to be able to play in a full season, I really think that if they're going all out on this year, Brock Bowers is the correct pick. So, and then they also have Mike Williams on the outside to spread or test defenses vertically. So I really like this fit here. I'm a Patriots fan, and I would hate that. So that's how I know it is a good pick here. And then with the Falcons, I'm going to go with the other edge rusher, Jared Verse. I think with Raheem Morris getting a guy that has this much speed to power and ability to just absolutely collapse pockets would be a really good fit. You have AJ Terrell on the back end. The linebacking group in Atlanta is really solid as well. So going and getting a nice edge rusher here who can kind of be that outside linebacker, can also play with a hand in the dirt. I really think that would be a good versatile fit. Next up, this pick, I'm really curious to see Broncos fans' reaction here because I wanted them to trade back, but I couldn't find anybody to trade back with. But then I also think I really like Bo Nix in a Sean Payton system. And if they can't trade back, I don't think Bo Nix makes it to, I believe it would be like 45. I don't think Bo Nix makes it there. And so I think they just go ahead and snag Bo Nix here at 12. Maybe it's a little bit of a reach. But if you think Bo Nix can come in and start for you right away, which I think he can, I think it's worth it in that scenario. You don't have to give up anything. You have limited draft capital in this year's class anyways. You have Jarrett Stidham, who ran that system decently well last year. So if you need a kind of a bridge guy into the next regime, I think that's probably a really solid option there. And then you can have Bo Nix just sit and learn and not have to get behind a leaky offensive line. So I think that they're in a good situation actually to grab a quarterback. They have good wide receiver room with Marvin Mims and Cortland Sutton. I know they traded away Jerry Jeudy, but this is a deep wide receiver class. They can probably address it later on. So here at 13 with the Las Vegas Raiders, I have Talise Fuaga coming off the board. They need a good right tackle. They lost Jermaine Illuminor in free agency. He can also probably kick into guard as well. Well, not probably. He definitely can kick into guard if he doesn't make it out at tackle. But to me, he's the best run blocking tackle in this class. And he brings a good level of physicality. He has all the physical traits you want, and he has really good footwork and tape. And I think he'll be a really solid option there for them. And then this is where I have Troy Fautanu coming off the board for the Saints. He really can play all 5 positions on this offensive line, and I think that adds to his value here. But I also think left tackle has been an area of need for the Saints for a little while. You go and get one here, I think would be a really good fit. So let's go with Troy Fautanu here for the Saints. And then here with the Colts, all the cornerbacks are still on the board. So we're going to snag Quinion Mitchell from Toledo. He's my cornerback 1. I tell this story every single time I do a mock draft, but just watching him at the Senior Bowl, he has all the size and athletic requirements that you would like to have in a top-tier corner. But then also one of the things I think separates him was just his mentality there. And he carried himself like a number 1 corner, and he was challenging wide receivers to one-on-ones and just really wanted to get after it. He had that tenacity that I really feel like you want. And then my last pick here, before I'll take a little bit of a break, it's going to be Jackson Powers Johnson to the Seattle Seahawks. I really like this fit. He's the best interior offensive lineman in this class. He can play either guard or center. There were some rumors that he could play tackle. To me, he's a little too kind of stocky to really be successful out at tackle, but his versatility on the inside would give them, I think, a really solid interior guy from day one. And he's most likely going to play center, which they need, but they also have Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross, who are 2 tackles that are really solid. I think they just struggled a little bit with injuries last year. So gonna snag him here, help solidify the interior of this offensive line. Tyler, I'm going to throw it over to you here while I take a little bit of a breather and just kind of get your thoughts.
I think it's been very unique so far. A couple of different picks than what normally has been going on, such as Minnesota trading up with Los Angeles number 5. I think that is unique. It is absolutely a possibility where the Chargers know actually, like if they trade back, they could potentially then trade back up with Atlanta or maybe with a team like the Tennessee Titans, knowing that still one of those receivers is going to go there. If Minnesota's going to want to trade up, they're obviously not going to go for receiver. So if they want to maybe get a little bit of extra draft capital, move up a little bit, and to them, I think you're exchanging your 3rd round pick then for the 23rd overall pick. Like that's absolutely something that they would go for. Yeah. I will say I'll disagree with you a little bit on some of your reasonings with JJ McCarthy. Maybe he's not a top 5 quarterback on paper, but just with some of the team needs, he'll merge into the top 10. But I think one of the reasons why he doesn't have as many pass attempts or maybe doesn't have as much film as some of these other top quarterbacks is because Michigan's been a top 5 team the past 4 years, and they were more of a run-heavy team. But in those specific moments, though, when you see him and he needs to be that passing quarterback, there are a lot of traits there that are that I think a lot of coaches would love to build on and love to kind of go and see. And he did play for a coach that's now an NFL coach in Jim Harbaugh. So he is more used to a pro style system, unlike some of these guys who maybe will run a little bit more of a unique style, of like college specific type system.
Like Drake Maye.
Like Drake Maye, potentially, and so I think that this would be worth it. I don't know if the Chargers would be the ones that want to trade back, or if it'd want to be the Giants, or I still feel I would still think that the Falcons will be the first team to trade back, and then that's another thing too that's changed. And I'm glad that you didn't take an edge rusher there at 8 with Rome Odunze still on the board. I was even thinking about it, like, are we going to get Rome Odunze or are we going to trade back? And I'd be happy with either one of those.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you chose to trade back. I also would have been completely satisfied if you drafted Rome Odunze for the Falcons. But taking Dallas Turner there with Rome Odunze, in my opinion, I don't think he's the best player on the board. And with the Falcons general manager and with the organization, their vision is best player available almost always. And Rome Odunze is definitely the best player available there. So if they'd want to trade back, get that extra draft capital, they would now have 3 third-rounders. And you can work your way up. You can maybe be more aggressive at the beginning of round 2 and maybe spread out some of those third-round picks. So I like that trade back. Everything else as well, I would say, has been pretty routine. I will say one thing, too, is Olu Fashanu has not been taken yet. And I think that is kind of more of a testament to how good Talise Fuaga and Troy Fatano have been during this combine. And they just seem a little bit more reliable. Olu's got the prospect genes and the upside capabilities. But I think Fatano, we know exactly what we're getting with him, and we know it's going to be a great play. Same thing with Fuaga as well. So in general, so far, it's been unique.
Yeah, and I will say Olu will come off the board here in a minute. But both of those guys, I think they have more positional versatility, whereas Olu is specifically a left tackle. And so if you – like the Raiders don't need a left tackle. And I feel like the Saints need more than just a left tackle, which is kind of why I went with Fatanu there. So I do want to I could make a whole video about JJ McCarthy. And I do like his tape. To me, there's just like it's a smaller sample size, and because Michigan was so good, we've never really seen him have to face we've never really seen him get hit in the mouth. We saw it a little bit in the Alabama game, and there was some good plays there. There was also some lucky plays, like the double pass that they did, I think was a great play, but I also think that he got lucky that Roman Wilson was just that wide open, and that was, to me, a lot of scheme. You look at the tipped pass that was caught on the final drive to send the game to overtime. That was really
we could debate,
like
specific plays. I think. I mean, if you want to make those as a knock against JJ McCarthy, you can.
I'm not making them a knock. I just am saying, I think that there's a lot of risk in investing. Like, to me, if they were to trade up to 3 and draft him at 3, they're giving up 3 first-round picks and a third to get up to 3.
Yeah.
No, and to me, that's a lot of risk. We're here, it's 11 and 23 in this year's class, but that's it. So,
no, I agree.
So, yeah. So, anyway, I think that's a really good fit for him. And to me, I think it's going to be all about fit for JJ McCarthy. So, let's get back into here with the Jaguars on the board. This is where I have Terrion Arnold coming off the board. To me, he's probably become the fan favorite of everybody. After his interview at the Combine, his message to his mom, and then just his play style. He was benched 2 seasons ago by Nick Saban, came back last year and was just one of the feistiest and most get after it type of guys. He's one of the hardest workers. And I think he's a really solid fit down here in Jacksonville. He's going to get a chance to start right away. He has inside-outside versatility, and he can play in all sorts of schemes. So here with the Bengals, I'm actually going to go with Byron Murphy. They lost DJ Reader. I think they really need that interior defensive tackle presence for this defense to be as good as it was. Because to me, part of the reason why this defense was so good over the previous 2 seasons versus this year was that they were really able to stop the run with 4 guys. And this past year, they weren't able to do that as easily. And so it pulled another guy or 2 out of that secondary to have to come down. And I think Byron Murphy brings that presence at that kind of that 4-down lineman technique or system, I really think Byron Murphy would do really well there. And then here at 19, this is where I have Olu coming off the board. And just to talk a little bit why I have him falling down here to 19 is he has all the traits to be a top level left tackle at the NFL. However, I do have concerns about his run blocking ability and his ability to handle power in NFL against NFL pass rushers, because in college he was just kind of able to absorb some of the lesser edge rushers. But when you saw him against like the JT Tumalaus of the world, or I forget the Michigan game, when they really tested his strength, that was when you really saw him kind of have some faults. Now, he didn't give up any sacks in 2023, but you definitely saw some of the chinks in the armor on tape. And then I think you go watch him in the run game, he doesn't have that finish that you would like to see out of an offensive lineman. He kind of gets to guys and then like doesn't know what to do with them. Like it's like kind of like when a domesticated dog catches a squirrel. He's like, all right, I got it. Now what? Like, and so I don't like, I like him as a prospect. He just needs a lot of development, and he has the age. He's only 20 or 21. He's a little bit older than Joe Alt, but not by much. He has the developmental age that you would want there for a guy in that spot. So here at 20, this is going to be a little bit of a different one, but this is a guy I really like. I'm going to go with A.D. Mitchell out of Texas here. I don't think that they need wide receivers per se, but I think when you look at the loss of Deontay Johnson, I think A.D. Mitchell is going to fill in that type of role where he's going to be moved around the formation a lot. He's not going to be the traditional X that George Pickens is, even though he is similar in size. But I think he'll be moved around the formation. Another thing that I do have a question about with A.D. Mitchell is just going to be his want to, because I feel like he takes plays off, and he does show up in big games. Like I think you look at the Washington game, the Alabama game, he had good games in those scenarios, but then I think he goes against lesser competition and he's like, I don't have to try. And one of the things that I really like about him in Pittsburgh is Mike Tomlin is one of the best coaches in the NFL at just getting the most out of his players. I think going and playing for a guy like that would do wonders for A.D. Mitchell. Another thing here with the Dolphins, at 21, Jersey Newton has fallen all this way. They lost Christian Wilkins in free agency. I would just copy and paste in my opinion. Put him and play him the exact same way that you played Christian Wilkins, and I think that's a really solid pick. Next up here with the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm actually going to have Nate Wiggins come off the board. I really like what he does on tape. I think he's a really, really solid player. And he is a little small, I think, for the position. However, I do think that the more rules that they add on the outside, the more finesse that these players are going to need. And Nate Wiggins plays with a lot of finesse in his game. He's not a physical man corner, but he can play man. But I think he's going to do really well in a system that utilizes his versatility. So up next, kind of going on a little bit of a run with cornerbacks here. Cooper DeJean is going to go to the Los Angeles Chargers. I think when you look at what Jim Harbaugh was doing at Michigan, he always had versatile corners. I forget the kid that went to Cincinnati 2 years ago. But
Dax Hill.
Yeah, Dax Hill. And then you have Mike Sanders still this year in this class. I think Cooper DeJean falls right into both of those guys' kind of role and does a really, really good job of it, just because that role allows athletes to be athletes. And I think he's one of the best, if not the best athlete in this class. So next up here with Dallas, I'm actually going to go with Brian Thomas Jr. He's going to be a deep threat. They kind of lost Michael Gallup, who was that for them. I know he's been on the team for the last couple seasons, but after he tore his ACL, he hasn't really looked the same. They have CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks still as well. But CeeDee Lamb, while this is a great stat for CeeDee Lamb, he had like over 1,700 receiving yards last year. The second guy on that team only had like 600. So like CeeDee Lamb outpaced the rest of the receiving room by like 1,100 yards. And so I think going and getting a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. here in the first round, investing in that receiving room around Dak, I think would be a really solid option. And I think when you look at the weaknesses, that the loss of Dan Quinn could show, because that defense was really good, but Dan Quinn was the one pulling the strings. I think the Cowboys are going to have to win more games by just scoring a lot of points, and I think going and investing in that offense is going to be how they do it. Here at 25 with the Green Bay Packers, this is a unique one because this is a guy I have said is not a first-round pick simply because of his arm length, but Jordan Morgan he can play left tackle. The big thing with him is that he has 32 and 7/8 inch arms, which if you don't follow the NFL that closely, there are 0 left tackles in the NFL with 0 starting left tackles in the NFL with less than 33 inch arms. And I know that like it's an eighth of an inch, but literally Peter Skoronski was there last year and his arms were 32.5 inches long. And he's one of the best offensive line prospects we've seen in a long time, and just in terms of like technique. And even he had to kick into left guard. So I do think Jordan Morgan could kick in or could play left tackle, but will most likely kick in to play guard. But I think when you look at the needs of the Packers offensive line, they need depth. They do kind of need to replace David Bakhtiari, but they have some thin spots at left guard and actually center as well. And so I think Jordan Morgan would be a unique option there to come in and fill both of those needs there. So that leaves Tampa Bay here at 26. And this is where I have Laiatu Latu coming off the board. He's a really polished edge rusher. They didn't have a great pass rush last year. They also got rid of Shaq Barrett as well. And so going and getting a guy who can play standing up, he can play with a hand in the dirt and kind of be versatile with whatever Todd Bowles wants to do down there in Tampa, I think is a really good fit. And then next up here, I am going to have Zach Frazier come off the board. The Arizona Cardinals do need to address the interior of this offensive line. He's the best one available, but I also think that this would be a really good fit. He's an athletic guy. He can play guard and center because he has the size to play both. But getting him in front of Kyler Murray, you have Paris Johnson. They just signed Jonah Williams as well. So I think that would really help solidify this offensive line. Then here with Buffalo, I have them going with Kool-Aid McKinstry. They did cut Trey White. They cut a lot of the guys in the secondary. And Sean McDermott is going to need some guys that can go and drop out into zone coverage. Kool-Aid McKinstry can also play man. He is the most technically refined corner, in my opinion, in this class. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not a poor athlete, but he's a good athlete. And I don't know. He just is just good at everything, where I feel like a lot of the other corners in this class have a little bit more of standout traits. And so getting a guy like that here at 28, I think is really good value. Next up for the Detroit Lions, I'm also a little bit of a different one, but this is a guy that did really, really well at the combine. I'm going to get Braden Fisk out of Florida State. I think you look at the quarterbacks in this division. Caleb Williams is going to be with the Bears. You have Jordan Love, and then you're going to go get JJ McCarthy for the Vikings. 2 young guys and a guy in his second season starting. You're going to want to get guys that can get after the passer and kind of knock them off their spot. And Braden Fisk is probably the most athletic defensive tackle in this class. And I think you get him next to Aiden Hutchinson, and they could really just overwhelm some offensive lines. I know they went and they invested in defensive tackles in free agency, but Braden Fisk is a bit of a unique one where he might only be on the field in the early part of his career for kind of sub packages and in true passing situations, but he does provide some versatility against the run, but he is a true pass rusher from the interior. And I think that provides a lot of value. Next up, I'm going to have J.C. Latham come off the board. To me, this is just too good a value here for the Ravens to pass up. He's a really good tackle. He's young. They need to invest in that offensive line, and getting him out in front of Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry, I think would do wonders. A lot of his flaws on tape they all start with him not being mentally in the game at the snap. So, example, the final play against Michigan. So I really like that fit. Next up, San Francisco. I'm going to go get Tyler Guyton he's a raw offensive lineman, but he has all the athleticism that you would want. And then lastly here with the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to go with a guy from Texas, but it's not going to be the guy that everybody thinks it's going to be. I'm actually going to go with Jatavian Sanders. Travis Kelce's going to be 35, I believe, this season, and that's just really old. He's been in the league for 11 or 12 years now, and I think that they really need to kind of start a succession plan. There were reports that he was already kind of considering retiring after the Super Bowl. Not that I think that those reports were truly serious, but you kind of start getting those rumblings, and then like, for example, Aaron Donald. There were a lot of reports that he was going to retire after the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. He came back for 2 seasons and then ended up leaving. But I don't know. Aaron Donald was also in his in his lower 30s, I guess. And getting a guy like Jatavian Sanders, I think, gives them a security blanket. And I think he can get on the field right away just with his versatility. So, Tyler, that is my 6 first round mock draft of the 2024 offseason. We kind of went through the first 16 picks, but what were your overall impressions?
This is definitely different than what you've normally done, which I like because I think it goes to show how deep this class is overall. Like Braden Fisk, for example, I think this is his debut to the first round in our Monday mock draft. And so that being said, though, dude has been on fire really throughout this entire offseason. So I could see him going there. I will say, scroll up, did Jersey Newton get taken
at 21st
at 21? Oh, okay, yeah. So I can see it with Jersey Newton being gone, then also with Byron Murphy being gone as well. Yeah, I get Braden Fisk. I think is clearing out to be that. The stereotypical defensive tackle, yes, the number 3rd one there. I say that just because Devondre Sweat, who really knows where he's going to fall, just because he's such a unique type. Definitely more of a nose tackle-esque, but he has could potentially be like every down capability. He's just so big. So what is his stand like? How are teams going to view him? And so I think it's going to be very interesting overall on just how these teams play out. If we want to scroll up just a little bit more so I can kind of walk through some of these. I will say one thing that I would change a little bit would be I would have Brian Thomas Jr. going to Pittsburgh over A.D. Mitchell, and then Cowboys taking A.D. Mitchell. I actually almost think that their play styles actually fit the teams better in reverse. I think with what Brian Thomas Jr. would bring to Pittsburgh, I think would complement George Pickens and also then to whichever quarterback is going to be playing for Pittsburgh, whether that be Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, because I think it is a QB battle. Then on the flip side, too, A.D. Mitchell, I think, would be a great compliment to CeeDee Lamb. I think he's a better version of Michael Gallup for sure. And then they're still going to have Brandon Cook, so that's going to be a great three receiving trio right there. That's just my personal opinion. Not that I dislike either pick or that I dislike them on that current team that you selected them on. But it was just initial thought that I had.
I'll disagree slightly. I think George Pickens and Brian Thomas Jr. have a very similar skill set. And that's where I think A.D. Mitchell is much more of like he can be that power slot receiver to that Z receiver as well. Whereas Brian Thomas Jr. is like strictly an X. Where I think the Cowboys, they move CeeDee Lamb around the formation. They move Brandon Cooks around the formation. And I think Brian Thomas Jr. is strictly that X that's going to be on the outside against the number 1 corner. And that, to me, that would open up the field for CeeDee Lamb. I do think Brian Thomas Jr. is the better player. Like, if I'm a GM and I'm drafting a team, I'm ranking Brian Thomas Jr. higher on my board. But I think just because they're both 6'3", 200 plus, they play very different in my eyes.
Yeah. No, it like I said, I could see Pittsburgh going there. I also could see Pittsburgh going more with a guard, but at the same time, though, too, with JPJ being off the board and then Troy Fatano and Felice Fuaga being off the board, maybe they don't value the other guys like Graham Barton or Jordan Morgan nearly as much, knowing that like they can go and address the interior later on. Also, as well, too, I think every single year that we've done this draft, or that we've done the Tracy Take. They have gone offensive every single time with Najee Harris, and then they've gone Kenny Pickett, then they went Broderick Jones last year. I agree. I think they're going to keep that trend together. It's going to be receiver or it is going to be someone like JPJ on the center. Because I do think for two center specific offensive linemen to go first to go in the first round, that seems unlikely to me. I can't remember it off the top of my head if this happened within the past couple of years. I know we've had a couple like Tyler Linderbaum, then John Michael Schmitz as well, but like those were one center per each round. For two, I'd be curious if that actually would happen, just because the overall value. You could go get a guy like Cedric Van Pran in the early third round, and could still be a starting center as well.
And I will say, so like last year, I think John Michael Schmitz was as good of a prospect as JPJ is. Maybe he doesn't quite have like the athleticism that JPJ does, so maybe JPJ is like a little bit higher. Yeah. But John Michael Schmitz went in the middle of the second to the Giants, so like just interesting things like that happen with that interior offensive lineman position. But then you have guys like Tyler Linderbaum, who was really, really solid, was taken at 20 by the Ravens like 2 drafts ago. So it's really kind of a crapshoot. I think it just depends on team need, how they evaluate that specific player, and how well they think that they fit the system.
Yeah, no, I agree. So in general, though, I like that it was mixed up. I don't really dislike any of the picks at all. I could absolutely see something like this happening. And so it's just, once again, this class is just so amazing. It is going to be a class that we talked about for a very long time.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see. So last year we had and again, I feel like we have this conversation every single time we do a mock draft, but last year we did a bunch of mock drafts as well. And we kind of were like, after like 18, you have like all of these guys that are not really first rounders that are going to go in the first round because like they have to. Like you can't just trade back. 14 teams can't trade back into the second round. And even then, teams have to trade up to make those picks. So it's going to be interesting kind of seeing where all these guys fall. But I think, especially in the top half of the second round, you're going to get guys that in other classes would be first round grades. Or would be first round picks because they'll have first round grades. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm excited. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel to get notified when we create new content. We are going live for the draft on Thursday, April 25th. So hit that notification bell to get notified when we go live or whenever we create new content. Other than that, we will see you guys next time.